Welcome to Basic Brewing Video. I'm James Spencer.
I'm Steve Wilkes.
We're going to call this show What We've Been Brewing Lately.
Because we got nothing else going, right?
We've been so busy. I was like, trying to think of a theme and getting together. I was like, what do we got? We got good stuff, though, which is good.
Yeah.
The first beer that we'll start with is, it's a revisit of my Rye Wit, which is not really a wit, but it's made with rye and wheat. So a listener came up with that's the clever name. So it's a Rye Wit, and I brewed it with the Nelson Sauvin hops because I went down to the New Zealand Homebrew Conference. They invited me down there. You were in Taos with your wife.
I was.
But they invited me down there, and we got to see where they grow and harvest these Nelson Sauvin or Sauvin hops and all the other hops from the Nelson region. Yeah. And there's a special episode of Basic Brewing Video on that. Check that out. It's really, really interesting. I think, of course I did it. So, I'm a little biased. So this is why don't you go ahead and open that. Okay. And it could be pretty well carbonated, so pour judiciously. But this is the Rye Wit. And I start out with 3 pounds or 1.4 kilograms of malted wheat, 2 pounds or 0.9 kilograms of malted rye. I mashed for an hour at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, or I think that's 65 C, and brew in a bag. It's important because brew in a bag, this might get stuck otherwise. Half an ounce or 14 grams of East Kent Goldings at 60 minutes for bittering, and then 2 ounces or 56 grams of New Zealand Nelson Sauvin hops at Flameout. Since I used malted wheat and malted rye, the rye gives a lot of body to this beer. The original gravity was only 1028. The final gravity was 1.008 or 1008. 2.6% alcohol in this beer. So, and it's been in the keg since a little over a month. So it's nice and clear.
Cheers. It is. Cheers.
It's a beautiful beer. Look at that. It's clear as a bell.
It smells.
And look at the little bubbles. The bubbles are rising a little more slowly than in a normal beer, I think, to show you what the mouthfeel is on that.
It's very nice. Yeah, the mouthfeel's great. I mean, it drinks bigger than it is.
Yeah. That's tasty.
What they say to me a lot.
Now, they say that the Nelson Sauvin, they call them the Nelson Sauvin hops because they're named after a grape that's grown in that region as well. I'm not familiar with that grape, but do you get kind of a winey character out of it at all? Do you get kind of a winey character?
No. Not really. I'm not sure if I do or not. I'm going to say no.
I get a little bit of a grapefruity character. There's a nice,
get
that. Even after it's been in the keg for a month or so, it's still fresh and tasty. And I'm going to keep experimenting. I've got another beer. Spoiler alert! I've got another beer in the works that's going to be low gravity. That's using rye, malted rye, as a big part of the malt bill to get these lower gravity, satisfying session beers.
Yeah, that's a nice beer. The grapefruitiness comes through, but it's not so grapefruity like Citra or Simcoe kind of thing. It's much more reserved, and then the spiciness of the rye really jumps out. So yeah, terrific. Now, are these hops? Did you actually get them in New Zealand, or did you get them here?
Got them at Andy's Homebrew Store, the home brewery in Fayetteville, Arkansas. But I think that's just a really, and it's got lacing. Look at that.
It does indeed.
But I've gotten lots of emails from folks that have tried the Rye Wit recipe and they like it. And I've even heard from somebody who has brewed it, not brew in a bag, but through the Grainfather system.
Oh yeah.
But they used lots of rice hulls to enable them not to get a stuck sparge. So the mash is very sticky with this.
This would be a nice beer, a nice entry-level beer, I think, for folks that are used to yellow, fizzy stuff.
It's got a bit more hop presence than.
But it's still not.
But only
challenging.
I figured out. I think it's like 96 calories for a pint, or for a 12-ounce bottle.
It's like a Michelob Ultra.
Yeah, only it tastes like something.
Yeah.
Speaking of tasting like something,
yeah,
you have a beer. Maybe I can pour.
Okay.
While you and this is exciting because this is your first time to brew on your high gravity.
That's right.
Electric brew in a bag system.
Yep. It's first actual beer that I really brewed on it.
Now, you've seen over and over, you've seen my system, which is like the 62 quart, you can brew up to 10 gallons. Yours is a smaller version, 110.
110.
What was how did you like it?
I love it. I mean, everything about it is great. It's so much easier to use in terms of the amount of equipment that you have to have, because there's no mash tun. I mean, there's no separate mash tun. And I have not been a brew in the bag brewer. That's also the very first time I've ever brewed in the bag.
Oh, well, I did not realize.
Two milestones for me. I've been a traditional, system, or homebrew system. And anyway, so on March the 31st, I brewed this beer, and my very first beer with it is an ESB. This is an extra special bitter.
So tell us about the recipe.
I will tell you about the recipe. It is 8 pounds of Maris Otter with 1 pound of Victory and 1 pound of malted wheat. So that's the grain bill. And then I bittered it with a ½ ounce of Chinook at 60 minutes, an ounce of Fuggles at 30 minutes, and an ounce of EKG at Flameout. And I used US-04 for my yeast. And I got a great fermentation out of it. It did everything it was supposed to do. And I think the beer came out well. What do you think?
I haven't tasted it, but it smells awesome.
I really like that I like beers, especially British beers, that you can get the grain out of them. I like to taste the grain.
It's almost, there's no like chocolate, but it smells chocolatey to me.
Yeah.
I guess it's the Maris Otter coming through, and probably the Victory as well. But it's really malty smelling. It tastes delicious. I think I forgot to tell you. Oh, I used US-05 on mine as well.
This reminds me personally quite a bit of Old Speckled Hen. I don't know if any of y'all out there drink that, but it's a nice beer that I like.
I'm not familiar, but...
Well, it reminds me of it, and kind of reminds me of a Bass. I mean, in other words, I believe that I got the style just where it needed to be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I couldn't be happier with the brewing system. The number of hours I had to spend doing this between start and, say, pitching, I don't know, it may have saved me a couple of hours.
Wow.
I mean, it felt like it.
Wow.
I didn't time it, but everything just goes so quickly. The water heats up more quickly. You don't have the mess. I mean, I'm traditionally brewed with propane, and so you don't have the soot that you get sometimes, and
you don't have a flaming hose.
The flaming hose. I had that the last time, and I could do the whole thing in kind of one very small footprint, which I really appreciated too. I didn't have to have anywhere near the amount of stuff to do it. So, big fan. And brewed a couple more times with it since then, and they're in the pipeline right now, which I'm sure we'll sample soon.
We'll look forward to that.
So yeah,
this is a wonderful beer. It's a fairly simple recipe.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think the more simple malt bills and the more simple recipes.
I have just morphed over the years. When I first started brewing, and for a long time, is like, what's in the kitchen and what can you throw in there? Mm-hmm. Let's try every flavor possible. And I guess you just go through that. Right. Maybe, or at least if you brew the way I do.
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah, what does this taste like? What does that taste like? And you kind of run that gamut. And now I'm really back to the simpler the better. I know exactly kind of what I'm after, and I know enough about what grain adds that I can say, if I do that and I do this and I do that, I'm going to get this. And so I'm really happy with this beer. I'd be happy to brew this over and over again. It's a little bit bigger beer than yours. Mine's 5.3 ABV.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that qualifies as a session beer or not. But
these days, yes.
These days, yeah. But 2 or 3 pints of this, and you'd be doing pretty well.
Well, it's delicious. It's really, really good. And it's what I would picture if you were to belly up to, I've never been to the UK, but it's what I would picture. It tastes authentic to me.
Road trip.
Yes, exactly. Hey, you folks in the UK, if you're having a homebrew conference, invite us.
That's right.
Pay for our way and we'll come.
British beers are my favorite.
Well, well done, Steve.
Thank you, James.
We will see you on the next show. Until then, happy brewing.
Happy brewing.
Come and visit us on the web. At basicbrewing.com, you can find archive lists of both our audio and video podcasts on home brewing. You can also find our DVDs, Extract Brewing and Partial Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, Introduction to Wine Kits, and our Basic Brewing Brewer's Logbook, where you can track and log up to 50 batches of beer. Drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. Write to James at basicbrewing.com, Steve at basicbrewing.com, or just use the contact form on basicbrewing.com.
Yay!
We did it.